Welcome to Data Skeptic Machine Intelligence, our podcast series exploring contemporary topics in artificial general intelligence and large language models. Long before anyone used the term data scientist, there was business intelligence, or BI. And long before there were data lakes and NoSQL, there was just your one monolithic database. Today on the show, we talk about the evolution of some of the data tools. There's an evolving set of solutions that can help a wide variety of people and organizations get better access to their data, ask and answer better questions. And of course, those efforts are certainly being influenced by large language models. We touch on the presence of Copilots in the data environment and wind up with some talk about the role of BI in the future.
My name is Amir Netz. I'm a technical fellow at Microsoft. I've been with the company for 27 years and spent a lot of time in the business intelligence space. And any of the listeners who are using Power BI, well, Power BI is one of my babies. And today I'm the CTO of Microsoft Fabric.
BI has evolved quite a bit in that time span. Maybe with an emphasis on the current, what do you think has changed the most or what's been most impactful?
BI has started its life more in the IT side. So when I joined Microsoft, it was part of the SQL Server organization. And you can imagine the people who buy SQL Server are part of the IT organization. There are DBAs and developers, and the whole product was designed for that persona. And about, let's say 15 years ago, there started to be a shift where business intelligence was driven by the business side, for the same people who would use Excel rather than the same people who would build the store procedure inside the database. And that changed the whole dynamic because when you build technology, you really have to know who you deal with and what's the persona, what's they're capable of doing. I would say the last 15 years, that transition has been completed where BI is mostly driven by the business side, where the business analysts are the main decision makers, and IT is moving to a complementary role where they are the ones who are responsible for supplying high-quality data for those business analysts, maybe responsible for the more authoritative data sources that you have, like the financial data warehouse is something that you'll not give a business user to build, but you give IT. But so much of the power and the ability to create and be creative has been given to the business side, to the business user. The same people who would use Office and Teams and Excel, now the users of BI.
Well, usually you give someone an inch, they want to take it a mile. What are the things that those business decision makers are demanding these days?
They want everything. Okay, they want it to be as easy as possible. They don't want to learn how to write complex expression. They want everything to be automated for them. They want everything to be fast. Like performance, oh my God, performance is the number one thing that anybody who is on the business side just would never compromise for. It's like when we look at the telemetry and we look at the responses we get for the Net Promoter Score, the NPS of the product, it's always performance. It's so important. So much of the emphasis is about experiences, easy experiences. They will not compromise. They don't care if it's a lot of data or little data. I want everything now, everything beautiful, everything easy. They're very finicky customers, but it's awesome because it's almost like a consumer market. It's not an IT market.
Well, it would be shocking if listeners didn't know Excel particularly well. I don't know that everyone's used Power BI and Fabric, though. Can you give us the baseline of what those tools are?
Well, Power BI is one thing and Fabric is another thing because Power BI has been around for about 8 years now. It's the world-leading, by far, BI tool. It actually is designed, the core experience is designed for the business side, designed for the Excel users, for the PowerPoint user. In fact, we like to call it the PowerPoint for data. If you actually use the Power BI and the Power BI desktop and you try to create reports, you'll find it's almost like working with PowerPoint. A lot of the same gestures, a lot of the same affordances, and how you do grouping of visuals and how you align visuals, the same thing that you do in PowerPoint. And it also has a lot of the Excel legacy or approach of if you know how to use pivot tables in Excel, well, you're instantly at home with Power BI. Power BI really rose to prominence on just viral adoption. People figuring out, oh, that's pretty cool. Let me try it out. Share it with a friend. The friend say, oh, that's pretty cool. How do you do that? And they figure out it's pretty easy. And we can see a lot of thousands and tens of thousands of hundreds of thousands of flowers blooming. And many of them turns into bushes and trees and forests in organizations. And it's pretty amazing because we have some organizations that have hundreds of thousands of Power BI users in one company. And we have a lot of companies that we are getting to 50 and 60%, and sometimes even more, of Excel users also using Power BI. And they say, if we can just, one day somebody will mention Excel and Power BI in the same breath, well, we can die happy.
And how about Fabric?
So Fabric is we took everything that has to do with analytics. Okay, so BI, business intelligence, is part of analytics. It's almost the last mile of analytics, where you actually have all the data ready, and you just have to now empower the final users to get some beautiful visualizations and dashboards and reports on the screen. But there's so much that happens before that. You have to import the data. You have to organize the data. There are data lakes and data warehouses, and you have to transform the data, and you have to train machine learning models. And so many things are happening before the data is ready for the business user. And you said, can we take the same ideas that made Power BI very successful and really take the rest of the stack, which is much bigger, much bigger than just BI, and apply the same principle for the rest of the stack?
Well, let's start from maybe a messy data lake somewhere where we've dumped whatever data we have. It's kind of a mess, but maybe it made sense to the engineer who set it up. How do I get started from there?
Well, first of all, you have to understand that the concept of the data lake in Fabric is so different than the concept of the data lake that you know of today. Data lakes today are just storage accounts, to be very honest. And it's a storage account, say, I just provision a storage account, I'll call it a data lake. The data lake in Fabric is a SaaS service. It's very, very rich. First of all, you have to wrap your head. It's not the same animal that people are talking about today about data lakes, which is just storage accounts, nothing more than that. Then you ask me the question, okay, I have a bunch of messy data. So imagine I loaded a bunch of messy data into one lake. And we'll talk later about the fact that you don't have to load data into one lake. One lake can expand itself to cover your existing data. It's really, really interesting. But if you load the data into one lake, then one of the things that you have to do first is clean it up. You say it's messy, you have to clean it up. So part of the Fabric capabilities is a whole ETL stack, extract, transform, load stack. So not only that you can connect to 180 different sources of data to bring the data, messy or not, but now you have a bunch of transformation tools that allows you to go and transform the data in incredible ways. It's actually the transformation tool that we have inside Fabric, which is called the data flows, is the same transformation tools that you have in Excel. So data flows are part of Excel. Data flows are part of the Power Platform, which is all the Dynamics 365 and Power apps that we have. So it's incredibly popular and really almost consumer-oriented in terms of usability tool. It's the number one by far, the ETL tool in the world by orders of magnitude, tens of millions of users. Just imagine, like Excel alone, how many users you get there. So it has incredibly a lot of mileage of the toughest, most complex, most demanding scenarios in the world. And when you bring it to Fabric, unlike Excel, well, Excel, when you run it, it runs on your desktop, and there's a certain amount of compute power you can do on your desktop. You same tool, same experience, running inside Fabric. You have massive clusters, MPP scale out capabilities that running on the same easy to use user interface, but now you can transform petabytes of data with it. So now you get the messy data being transformed, and if that transformed right, you want to create something that is structured data out of it. So we store all the structured data in one lake in a common format. It's an open source format. It's the Parquet format with Delta Data Lake metadata on top of that. And because we store it in this one specific format that we all agreed across all the workloads of Fabric, and remember that ETL is one thing that Fabric can do, that means that once I put it in, the rest of Fabric lights up on top of it because everything in Fabric knows how to work optimally with Parquet files. I can instantly connect to the data from my notebook and run Spark jobs on top of it, or I can connect to the data from my data warehousing engine and run SQL queries on top of it. And because the data warehousing engine natively was optimized to work with the Parquet files, so one copy in the lake can do everything. So you don't have to move, copy, duplicate, import, export. All of that is gone. You don't have, and when we look at project and complexity on project, it's all about data movement. It's all about, I need to refresh the data 3 times a day. What is refresh the data? It's just moving it from one place to another place. We don't have to do it anymore. So the projects become so much easier. There's so much saving on costs, and the data is always up to date, and the data is always consistent with each other because we don't have 2 copies of the same thing, maybe out of sync. I hope you start getting a feel of the kind of the power of what's happening there in Fabric.
Well, let's talk about the machine learning use case where, all right, my data's there, it's all loaded, I've done the transformations, it's time for me to train a model and then hopefully launch that model somehow. What's that process like for the ML engineer?
Again, it's all completely SaaSified. So first of all, machine learning engineers, for the most part, like to use Python notebooks. They like to use Spark Compute, so you can do PySpark. These things have been SaaSified. Like you never have to launch or to spin up a cluster. It's gone. SaaS. Just like you don't have to speed up Excel. Like it's instant, right? So the cluster is always there. This cluster will auto scale with you. You never have to think about the infrastructure anymore. You don't pick up VM. You don't have to worry about how much memory it has. You don't have to worry about the sizing. It's just instantly up and running. You can instantly work with it. You do the things that data scientists do, right? You go in, load the data into data frames, and you use your favorite libraries, and you train. You visualize the data, and one thing that is really cool is because it's single product, you can even visualize the data using Power BI inside your notebook. And you visualize your data, and you can save the results into OneLake, because again, by default, everything is stored back to the Delta Parquet format. Then the time comes where you actually want to deploy the model, and all you have to say is, I want, give me the endpoint for me so I can do some scoring. I'm done. I don't have to worry about how do I deploy that model, provision an endpoint, create compute that will host it. All of that is just SaaSified. Like so much of the craft of, of it's a little bit like the difference between another analogy, terrible, the difference between woodworking and Lego kit building. In Lego, you just take the pieces and just snap together. Instantly, you get results. Woodworking, you have to cut, and you have to glue, and you have to hammer the nails in, and you may miss, and everything might still be rickety if you haven't done it completely correctly, where the Lego just snaps in. It's all guaranteed to work. And so that's kind of it. So users who are came from the world of PaaS and starting to use Fabric, the first question is, where's the glue? Where's the hammer? I don't understand how I'm supposed to work without those things. And then they figure out that they don't need them because the pieces just snap to each other easily. And then they say, I don't understand how I ever worked any other way. And this is why we're seeing amazing adoption. Like we have 25,000 customers already using Fabric. The level of energy that we are seeing from the community, from the early adopters, it just spreads like wildfire. It's pretty incredible.
Were you given an AI problem to solve with too little data or too little time? I know I have. Web AI hears you. They're a team of AI and ML researchers and practitioners who've created Navigator, an IDE designed to streamline the MLOps process to get your project across the finish line in hours and days instead of weeks and months. With state-of-the-art architectures like deep detection and attention steering, you can build object detectors and classifiers, as well as expert conversational agents. You own your models and data forever, and can even train and run locally to ensure privacy and security. When you're done tweaking, integrate your creations effortlessly into production-ready solutions, full code like I like, or drag and drop. Deploy to any environment, at the edge or the cloud. From ad hoc proof of concepts to full-scale enterprise deployments, Navigator has you covered. Get early access at webai.com/dataskeptic. Well, if we stick with maybe the analogy, the woodworker has a little bit more freedom in some sense. Like he can cut any wood he wants, and a lot of people who've made these kind of homegrown solutions, tying a bunch of products together, might have the attitude of like, well, we can do anything we want. Are we going to get locked into something? It does A, B, and C, but not D.
Look, it's a kind of fair concern on paper. And I remember the exact same fair concern that was there when Java and C# showed up, and all the C# guys said, well, now that you have automatic memory management and garbage collection, then that's, how would you control that it does it in the right way, the right time? And in C#, in C++, we have complete control about every piece of memory. And yes, you have the control, but at the end of the day, we can do things just like the virtual machines of C# and .NET and Java learn how to do things better than humans because you can optimize. You can just expert level. It's very hard for human to compete with the efficiencies of these runtimes. I think the same is true for Fabric. So Fabric is designed as a SaaS product. It is auto-integrated. It is auto-optimized. It will allocate more resources when you need it. It will take the resources when you don't need it. Just like the JVM was doing compared to C#, which everything had to do manually. And the result is massive productivity enhancement and also much better reliability. Because you need to be an expert. Even if woodworker, not everybody can build something that you can sell in a retail store. If I were to try to build something from woodwork, my chair will be very rickety, I can tell you that. You have to have some significant expertise before your product is good enough even for basic consumption. And you'll still not be a world expert at that. And we just open when you have this Lego piece approach. We just give you instant productivity. We guarantee certain behavior, certain security, certain compliance, certain integration, certain availability. We take care of all of that. So you don't control which VM we're going to run the software on. So what? You don't control when we add more resources to help you. So what? But it runs faster. And we take care of you. And people see that, and it just expands the funnel. So many more people can build. So much more production can be achieved when it's easy, when you're not bottlenecked on just a few experts that you have in the organization.
So do you think that's going to eventually lead to something like an elimination of the data analytics role? Will that just be a self-service thing anyone can do?
I think that what we're trying to do is, first of all, eliminate the things that nobody likes. Nobody likes to worry about scale. Nobody likes to wire, making sure that the security certificates are installed in all the places or the VNet is properly configured. Nobody likes that. A lot of what the SaaS takes care of, saying don't worry about it anymore. Just we'll take care of it. Don't worry about performance. We'll optimize for you. What is the problem you're trying to solve? What, in your judgment, the best pieces of data that is needed to solve the problem? As an expert, as a domain expert, you're really needed. Now, even with that, we're going to help you and simplify your work and maybe empower even more, because the other thing that's happening with Fabric is, OpenAI and generative AI coming in, and yes, copilots. And you cannot have here anybody from Microsoft sitting for an interview not mentioning copilots, because it's all like the whole company is all over copilots. It's really helping you to think. It's pretty amazing, and everybody probably listening here played around with ChatGPT and understand the magical power that it actually gives you ideas. It helps you think about things. How would you do that? Can you recommend? The same thing now applies to data. So you can go and tell the Copilot what you want to do, and it can suggest what is the best approach. And it can build the Python script for you, or the ETL package for you, or the report for you instantly. It's not like having this kind of expert sitting next to you and you can consult with, and it can do some of the coding work for you and some of the hard work. So it not only give you, should do X, Y, Z, but let me do it for you. So at the end of the day, I think, but that's true for virtually every profession. I think the AI will augment us. It's a copilot. It's not the pilot. It's your copilot. So you're still needed. But it's going to augment you and give you a power multiplier to do more, to do things faster, to be more creative.
And how does a user end up interacting with the Copilot?
Oh, it's trivial. You have a small Copilot button on the top of in the ribbon. You click on it, you get a side pane, the chat pane, and you talk to the Copilot. You say, can you recommend how we'll do this transformation? Can you join these two tables for me? Can you convert from Fahrenheit to Celsius? Can you categorize the travel times to 3 categories of fast, medium, and slow? And it will just write the expressions for you in the right place. And once you look at the data to understand what you mean, you ask him about rainy days, you'll know that you probably mean the precipitation column in the table, because it has this, we all use ChatGPT. It's pretty smart. Okay, it understands what we mean, and it can understand the clues it can look at the scheme of the data instances in the table, and connect it to what you're talking about, and say, I guess when you say about rainy days, I guess you're talking about precipitation here in the table. Okay, so just like a human.
So we've talked about loading all my data ends up as Parquet files, and I think I get the ETL process, but I also have this feeling that data is our proprietary data that only I understand. How does Copilot know my schema and the details of my organization?
So even proprietary data, people typically gives it at least somewhat readable names. They may use camel notation, removing the spaces. They may use shortcuts. But the reason why we give it somewhat readable names is because we say, well, in 3 months we are going to come back here and we're going to look at the column name, and we have to remember what we meant when we gave that column name. So just like we name variables, we name column, we name codes in the databases that we can actually reverse engineer what we did in the past. that same logic that applies to us. The Copilot is, I don't understand the magic of the AI that the guys did there in OpenAI, but it really is thinking like us. So the same hints that will make us understand what we meant 3 months ago when we put that name in, the Copilot will understand as well. Say, oh, I understand what this shortcut is. I understand that AMT means amount. We know AMT, like say amount dollar, AMT dollar, or AMT USD, amount in US dollars. We'll probably figure out that's the amount in this currency. The Copilot will have the same reasoning power that we have, and say, I guess that's the one that you meant to. When you work with a Copilot, it's like having a very intelligent expert sitting next to you and make the same intelligent guesses that you can make. It has massive amounts of background knowledge that it brings to the table, and kind of understand your language and and everything you say. Okay, I kind of can respond in an intelligent fashion to what you say here.
I know it's early days. You may not necessarily have all the telemetry on this yet, but do you have a sense of how people are taking advantage of the Copilot? What sort of queries come across?
Two things I think are true. Number one is ChatGPT set an incredibly high bar for people's expectations. The level of creativity and the level of understanding and the level of abbreviated dialogue, and you say, no, I meant this, and that's it. You don't have to repeat your question anymore. Like, our challenge is to take the same experiences and make them available on top of proprietary data that the Copilot never saw before. Okay, because the Copilot saw all the public data in the world, but never saw your data. How do we replicate the same experiences when it comes to proprietary data? And that's not easy. You cannot feed the entire database to the Copilot. You have to figure out what does the Copilot needs to know. Okay, so you give them table names, column names. It's just enough. No, you need to give them some schema, some instant values from the tables. So I want to tell the Copilot to create for me a report that analyzes my customer retention. And it's not like it's a query. Like, figure out a layout for the report and what visuals are the most appropriate visuals and how should the title be and what should we should be able to filter on. ChatGPT set a bar that we must meet. It's not like we say, if it wasn't ChatGPT, we could have inched our way towards it. And every step on the way would have been another victory. When ChatGPT said this incredible, intelligent bot that does so many things and you just ask a question and give you the full answer, then suddenly anything that is below that is almost like a disappointment. So we have to figure out a way to really answer questions about data and create reports and build ETL packages for you with the same level of articulation that and the same responsiveness and the same richness of responsiveness, creativity of responsiveness that people are used to from the consumer space that they experience with ChatGPT.
Well, it sounds like there's the promise that a top executive, a busy executive, could go in and say, I need a report on, sales figures with these details and caveats, and instantly it could get it.
That's what people expect, really. That's what, it really is this way. I don't think we're going to get to that level of completely go to the computer and in the start menu of Windows, type in your question, and we'll figure out, scan millions of databases, figure out which one you're asking for, because frankly, if you're the best expert in the company, and you say, Satya Nadella just asked this question, which database should answer the question, very few people in the company will actually know what the answer is. So it's some of it is even hard for humans, not to mention hard for the ChatGPT. So we'll get there. I really believe we'll get there. It will take several steps. It's not going to be everything all in one. But we'll start with smaller. Okay, so I'm engaged with a sales database, and now I'm asking the question. So now the problem of finding which database it is solved. And still have to figure out which tables, and there are quite a lot of tables that may have duplicate data, derivative data, which is the right one to use. So, but at least it's a narrower problem, and this is where we start getting a pretty good result.
Well, as impressive as ChatGPT is, people also know it hallucinates. I would have a little worry that, if I asked it to come up with a query somewhere, it's a join where it should have been a left join or whatever. What do you imagine is sort of the workflow like going forward?
Yeah, we like to talk about the hallucination of ChatGPT. We always forget that humans just have the same problems. Yeah, I don't know if I give to any of my developer a question that, can I really be sure that they're going to give me the right query back, that they actually joined it correctly, that did an inner join and not an outer join. The ability to make mistakes is always there for humans and for the AI. And you have to put the same protections in place. Trust but verify. sometimes you just apply two bots to answer the same question, and just like you would ask two people, second opinion kind of to see am I getting the same result. Each one working in its own way. The other thing that you do is you just try to put the bots on rails. You try to feed them enough instruction, just like a human. This is the general way of how to solve the problem. We thought about it already. We understand our data. We understand how things needs to be joined together. We understand how metrics are being calculated. So we already did that, ChatGPT or the AI bot or OpenAI bot. We already did all of that. So you take it as a given, just like I would tell an employee, you take it as a given. Somebody already did their work before, so don't go and reinvent what they did. And just use those instructions and use this intellectual property that we have created here as is, and use that to answer the problem. Now we minimize the chances you're going to get it wrong, because it's already working on proven technology. So this is why semantic models are so important. And by the way, the Fabric comes with maybe the most robust semantic model in the industry. Metrics layers, all of that, it's just built in, and it allows you to kind of minimize the chances of the thing invents new ideas from thin air that may or may not be right. Okay.
Well, who do you see in terms of like role or title? Who's the main user of Fabric, and what are they doing with it?
So there isn't a main user for Fabric. There are many types of users of Fabric, and it's designed for anybody who touches data. So it's the data engineer and the data scientist and the data warehouse administrator and the BI analyst and the business user who's consuming the data from the system, and the data integration engineer and the developer who just builds applications. If you care about data, if you touch data, if you do things with data, if you observe data, OT and operational technology, real-time messaging people, all of that, Fabric is for you.
And can you share a few thoughts on where you think things are going? What does data analytics look like in the new AI world?
Until a year ago, I had a very, very clear image in my mind how the next 5 years will roll in the world of data. I don't know how politics will roll out. I don't know, how gaming will look. But I know data. I've been doing data for so many decades. I know data. Everything changed when this generative AI showed up. And I can tell you some things that I am pretty sure will happen. And then the rest is we're going to see year to year what's happening because it's moving so fast. I think that this idea of open formats and open lake are going to win. I think that the ability to create, I think that the ability to democratize and make everything easier, both expand the pool of people who can work with data at every level. Those who are doing BI can now do data engineering. Those who are doing data engineering can now do data science. Okay, so just up-level the skills of everybody. It's going to be there. I think the copilots are going to help us tremendously. But then when you start getting generative AI, I say, okay, I don't know what will happen. Are they going to replace us? I don't know. Clearly, they have something interesting. Like they're replacing, I have a Tesla, it replaces me as a driver. Something really, really, really fundamental is happening. And we all know it's fundamental. We all know it's going to have massive impact on the lives of everybody, not just in the data industry, not just in IT, but in the consumer space. The innovations are coming so fast. So we know it's going to be different, very, very different. I just don't know how it's going to look like.
Yeah, exciting times indeed, though.
Yes.
And Amir, is there anywhere listeners can follow you online?
I typically watch Twitter, and I sometimes tweet in Twitter. So the handle is the name, first name and last name. So basically, Amir Netz, that's my handle in Twitter. I will typically tweet about everything relating to Fabric and Power BI, and that's what I do.
Very cool. We'll have links in the show notes for listeners to follow up. Thank you so much for taking the time to come on and share the work.
It was my pleasure, Kyle.